Alrighty, so today we're going to do the season preview of the Portland Timbers. So obviously, there's no doubt that I cannot talk about the Portland Timbers without talking about the elephant in the room in terms of this offseason. And the one big question this team, of course, face is what's going to happen in terms of the future of Evander, and that we pretty much know that he's probably going to be moving on to another team, specifically FC Cincinnati. But most likely, we probably won't see that move happen unless we don't know what's going on with the situation with Lucho Acosta with FC Cincinnati and which team he's going to do, and specifically which MLS club he could be, because there's now rumor that there's two MLS club that is looking to try to get him, and when that of course is resolved, you would assume the domino will start to fall, and the Evander situation will be much clearer. But besides the Evander situation, obviously, this team, it's been a relatively quiet off season. They did add a couple of pieces, specifically in terms of the defensive midfielder and also the defensive part as well. But overall, you just kind of feel like when you look at this roster, it does feel like this team maybe is heading into the same direction as they did last season, which this team could be a very fun team to watch. This attack can be absolutely lethal. But then you also have to ask the question about the defense, and the defense for this team has been absolutely horrendous the last couple of years, and the fact that they really kind of haven't quite to fix that, and even when they try to do so, it just kind of completely blow up in their face, similar to what we see with the Galaxy have to dealt with for a long time. Where over the years, the Galaxy was a team like the Timbers in the situation of they always did to have good attacking players, but on the defensive end, no matter what they try, it just does not work out whatsoever. Last season, they did make the playoffs in ninth place with a 12, 11, and 11 record and finished with 47 points. And again, if you count making into the play-in round as playoffs, I guess that of course is the case. But yeah, I'm pretty sure Timbers fans does not want to remember what happened in the play-in round. I mean, it is going to go down as one of the most embarrassing nights at Providence Park history for the Portland Timbers, getting absolutely thumped by the Vancouver Whitecaps in that game, and I think that also might be the worst loss that the Timbers have ever suffered at Providence Park. I don't recall them suffer like a 5-0 beatdown like that, like they did against the Vancouver Whitecaps. And as I'll talk about in just a bit, they're going to face that team relatively early in the season as well. Now, the last playoff appearance was 2024. Again, if you count the play-in round as a playoff appearance, I guess it's 2024. But if you don't count, then the last time they really made it to the playoffs was back in 2021 when they of course went all the way to MLS Cup only to fall short on the final hurdle, and that was also the last time they won a playoff series. It's hard to believe that the Timbers have not won a playoff series for a while now. This team seems like ever since that glory that they had reaching to another MLS Cup, and then unfortunately not winning it and becoming the unfortunate one team that you got to go all the way back to 2016 as the only team to not win MLS Cup at home. Pretty much since 2016, every single team has won MLS Cup at home except for the Portland Timbers. Things have been kind of mediocre at best for this team, and it also doesn't help the fact that during that spell there was a major scandal that happened behind the scene that really tainted this fan base and even the support of this team as well. The head coach of this team is Phil Neville. So last year when Phil Neville was hired, it was a very unpopular hiring. But unfortunately, as much as I said that last year, it seems like even though with some of these unpopular hiring, and there's been a trend that sometime with unpopular hiring, it actually could work out relatively well. I gave the example of Chris Armas and Ben Olsen, what they did to their team after they were hired, and fans were not happy when they were, of course, hired. You can't say the same about Phil Neville. I mean, last season it kind of felt like a very Phil Neville kind of season. There were times where they were good, and then there's time where they were absolutely horrendous, and that's been the thing that I think Inter Miami fans were warning about the Timbers when they hired Phil Neville. He is kind of a head coach that it's a he is very hot and cold when it comes to how he gets his team. His team can play relatively well in a spell period, but then there's times when the losing happen. Oh, you better believe it's gonna be in an extended period before it comes out. And again, I feel like this could be the same direction heading into this season as well. And you wonder how much patience the Timbers might have with Phil Neville with things going to go in the same direction, especially if they don't make it to the playoffs again heading into this season. Now, looking at their GM, it's Ned Garber, boy, he of course is the GM that replaced Gavin Wilkinson, who yeah, let's just say what we don't want to talk too much about what happened to Gavin Wilkinson. He all we have to say is he was in the midst of that's ugly scandal that happened a couple of years ago, and he pretty much resigned in disgrace as a result. So yeah, Ned Garber, boy, former Portland Timbers player, stepped in as the GM. He's been there since 2022. Now, looking at the signings that they made this offseason, again, it's been a relatively quiet offseason. They did make one major signing that maybe could improve their attack, but other than that, they of course signed Ariel Lassiter off free agency. They also got João Ortiz transferred from Independente. A lot of people are saying that this could potentially be the replacement for Diego Char, even though I thought David Ayala was probably that player to replace him. Although Ayala has been kind of he's been okay doing his time, but definitely nowhere near in terms of the Diego Chara kind of type of player. It also doesn't help he got injured very early doing his time with the Timbers, and maybe that kind of hamper what his potential has. But they're hoping João Ortiz might be the guy that can really solidify that number 6 role. I mean, we know that Diego Chara is pretty much irreplaceable. He has done throughout his time with the Timbers and what he has done in this league, he is going to go down as one, if not the best number 6 to ever play in this league. He's going to be right up there in terms of the D-mid Mount Rushmore of Ozzy Alonso and Kyle Beckman in terms of that spot in terms of the best D-mid to ever play in this league as well. So yeah, no pressure in terms of João Ortiz in terms of stepping into that role. And then of course the major signing that they got this all season was bringing Kevin Kelsey from Shakhtar Donetsk. Now obviously he played for FC Cincinnati, but he was actually on loan with Shakhtar Donetsk. And after Cincinnati decided not to renew his loan, the Timbers were trying to maybe looking to get this transfer done outright, and indeed that of course is the case. And I'm interested to see how Kevin Kelsey does for the Portland Timbers. It's kind of interesting that they decided to sign another 9. I mean, they don't really need a number 9. I mean, they already have Capacita Rodriguez as well, but I guess maybe Phil Neville might play a two striker system or maybe move Kevin Kelsey somewhere else because what we saw when Kevin Kelsey came to FC Cincinnati, at least in the first couple of games, he was absolutely electric. He was everything that Cincinnati were hoping for as a replacement. And then after that good spell played in the beginning, the goals pretty much dried up for him, and that's why he didn't get he didn't get his loan renew with Cincinnati, and Cincinnati didn't actually decide to purchase him outright. And then the other signing, including Ian Smith, that they of course got in the Super Draft, and then they recently got Jamer Forey from Independente Medellin. He's a left back that can maybe help solidify this back line. That again, as I said, whatever they try when it comes to fixing the back line, it has just not worked whatsoever. So we'll see whether or not if this latest addition could maybe at least sort of fix it. Looking at players that are no longer on this team, you got Tega Ikopa. His option was declined. The same goes for Marvin Larea as well, and Mason Toy, who's now with Sporting KC. Then you also saw Eric Williamson got traded to Charlotte FC. You saw Hunter Salter got loaned to Indy 11. And then I also put Evander name on there because let's face it's going to happen this offseason. It's going to be a matter or time that this move is going to happen. I would be really surprised if he's going to be on the start the lineup heading into the first game of the season. And if he is, I mean, I don't think he's going to be very motivated of playing too. He's clearly unhappy doing his time with the Portland Timbers. He wants to move out, similar to what we saw with Lucho Acosta won his way out of Cincinnati as well. And I even wrote the word trade to FC Cincinnati with a question mark because that's most likely is going to be the move. And again, we'll talk a little bit more about that once we get to the free big question. But looking at the first 5 games of the season, so remember how I said that they're going to play the Vancouver Whitecaps relatively early in the season? Well, it turns out it's the first game of the season. So yeah, that's kind of interesting for the schedule maker to have the rematch of last year playing round in literally the first game of the season, and it's even at Providence Park as well. So yeah, I'm pretty sure the Timbers will want to not only have revenge for that game, but they definitely do not want PTSD of what happened when last time they faced the Whitecaps at Providence Park. Then they play at home against Austin FC before going on the road to play against Nashville. Then they play against the LA Galaxy, a matchup that I'm definitely going to be tuning into because anytime when we see the Timbers play the Galaxy, especially last season, it was absolute firework. And in the meme of how Reinstein kind of raised his hands, it was absolutely cinema in terms of what we saw in those two matchup. And then they of course face against the Colorado Rapids on the road. That could also be a matchup that could be absolute cinema as well, especially how good the Rapids were last season, especially with their attack as well. Looking at the last 5 games for the Portland Timbers, well, they faced against the New York Red Bulls at home before going on the road to play against the Houston Dynamo. Then they return home to play against Dallas. Then we do have the Cascadia Derby relatively late this season, just like last year. But unlike last year, where it was on decision day, this is actually prior to decision day. That of course is October 4th. And again, anytime when a Cascadia Derby happened late in the season, it can work both ways. It can actually be a good thing, but it can also be just, I kind of want the Cascadia Derby maybe a little bit earlier, considering both of these teams really want to use that as a way to to give them some momentum. We've seen before when teams win that derby, it's not just about the bragging rights of winning the Cascadia Cup, but it's also getting yourself some momentum in the next couple of games because we've seen these two Cascadia team. Whoever wins it, they get a huge boost of momentum and able to ride themselves into the playoffs. And maybe I guess having it so late in the season might be a way for them to get at least some momentum heading into the playoffs as well. And then the final game of the season, they're going to be facing against San Diego FC, the expansion team, at home as well. Now, looking at the strength of this team, I mean, it's pretty easy. It's obviously the attack, and that I even wrote if they replace Evander. Evander definitely provides a lot when it comes to the attack, and this is also where I want to mention. Well, actually, I'll hold off on that once I get to talk about the free big question because it looks like they might already have a replacement in on the wing right now, but there's no doubt that even if you minus Evander, this attack is still really decent. I mean, you got the likes of Santiago Marino, Kevin Kelsey, Capacito, Rodriguez, and all those players are still there that can really generate goals for this team. But as good as the attack is, again, the weakness of this team has been the defense. It's been that case for the past couple year. They're really hoping that this might be the year where they can fix that defense. And most importantly, speaking of defense, looking at the goalkeeping spot as well, Maxime Crepeau. I mean, Crepeau didn't really had a good season last year either. I mean, I know some of the goals that he conceded wasn't really his fault because his defense just kind of didn't help him. But at the same time, I have seen Maxime Crepeau stood on his head multiple times, especially during his time with the Vancouver Whitecaps, and he kind of really didn't do that much last season as well. And especially now that with the way that it seems like Jesse Mars are saying that he's going to go with Dane Sinclair as the Canadian number one in the future, that might actually maybe lit a fire on Maxime Crepeau as well because Crepeau was supposed to be the number one for the Canadian national team, and the fact that now he kind of lost his job to Dane Sinclair. And don't get me wrong, Dane Sinclair has been amazing doing his time with Minnesota, but it's got to be tick Maxime Crepeau off that he took his number one spot, and that there's no doubt he's want to win that spot, and the only way to do so is that he needs to go back to being one of the better goalkeeper in this league, and at times maybe have to do some bailout job because, as I said, this defense heading into this season, I have a feeling it's just going to be like previous season. It's going to be pretty easy to pick apart, and at times Swiss cheese as well. Now, looking at the free big question, and now we finally get to talk about the Evander situation. So again, I think the reason why we haven't got the answer in terms of the Evander situation really started with the Lucho Acosta situation, especially with Cincinnati saying that they're going to bring in Evander if they decided to sell Lucho Acosta. I actually thought that this was going to happen sooner. Consider I thought Lucho Acosta was going to Estudiante, but that deal seems like it's on the verge of collapse, and now he's either joining the San Jose Earthquakes or FC Dallas. And from what I also heard today, there's even a newer update saying that Dallas looks like is going to be the team that is looking to get Lucho Acosta. And once that deal is done, you would assume the Evander their deal would also be pushed through. Now, I'm also assuming the Evander deal of him going to Cincinnati, similar to how Lucho Acosta going to Dallas. It's going to be via the cash player trade. Again, the cash player trade. This is kind of the reason why we see these blockbuster move. No longer you see teams that need to really worry about their general allocation money and shell a huge amount of that. If you can have the enough cash to sign those players, and you can and you have the spot to do so, because again, one of the reason with these cash player trade is that there is a limit in terms of you can only do two per window. But if you have the chance to do so, then yeah, you're seeing teams are able to do that. I think that trade system has been a really big game changer, and that really, when you look at some of these blockbuster moves that has happened in the last couple of days, all started with Dejan Joveljic, and now we saw just recently with Jack McGlynn, and even Ted Gutierrez going to the Colorado Rapids as well in the same system. This is the reason why we're having these kind of discussion of Lucho Acosta potentially staying in the league and going to another team, and Evander potentially going to Cincinnati for some cash consideration as well. And then of course talk about the replacement as well. So the replacement, from what I heard from Timbers fan, they said it's this guy called DeCosta. He plays for RC Lons, and it seems like it's gonna be a $7 million transfer that they're lining up. In fact, today they look like they have already agreed turn to that. So it's a matter of time before once this Evander move does push through with Lucho Acosta departing most likely to Dallas, then the domino will also fall that it seems like the Costa is going to play for this team, which kind of brings us to the second big question of this team, and that of course is, with the Costa coming in to this team, is he going to have almost the same impact as Evander? Which that's going to be tough to match, because what Evander did last season, especially in the latter part of the season, that was some MVP level stuff. There was a reason why we even have MVP talk about him, and including him in the conversation with the way that he really carried that Timbers attack for the most part. So now with him being gone, and with the Costa being coming into this team, we'll see whether or not if he can make that instant impact straight away as well. And then the last big question I think for this Timber side is the situation with Diego Chara. So we know that Diego Chara, of course, is an ageless wonder, but at the same time, we know that the old saying, "Father Time is always undefeated," and Father Time might be starting to catch up to Diego Chara. And I go back to what I said earlier about Joel Ortiz. Looks like he probably is going to be the replacement for him. The question now is that is this probably his last season for the Portland Timbers? And knowing that when you look at his contract situation, he's got one more year in his contract. He doesn't have an option to 2026 as well. But if he started to show that father time, and the minutes are started to diminish, I would not be surprised this might be the final year that he might be with this team. And what a big loss that has to be for the Portland Timbers. I mean, he's an absolute legend of this team. If they do build some trophy in front of Providence Park, Diego Chara has to be there alongside with Diego Valeri. Those are two of the greatest Timbers player to have ever played for this club in MLS. And yeah, it's gonna be a very sad day to see Diego Chara finally decide to move on from him. I'm pretty sure they're probably even gonna do a bit of a ceremony to celebrate that. But we knew that the day is going to have to come, that eventually the Timbers have to replace Diego Chara. And like I said, it seems like they might have already have a replacement to do so. But it's all about whether or not if that replacement is decent, and I'm talking about Joel Ortiz here in this case. So expectation heading into this season. So I put fringe playoff hope mainly because again, as much as I know the expectation for a lot of Timbers fans is playoffs is a bare minimum. I just don't see it. Like when you look at this team, it just feels like heading into next season, it's almost going to be the same thing as last season, where this team will show some promise at times, and can show at times look like they're the old Timbers side that we've seen before. But again, the problem with the way that this roster is constructed, I don't really like how this roster is constructed. Once again, focus very heavily on the attack, while really neglecting the defensive issue. I know the last couple of MLS Cup winner, it's been kind of relatively successful, and the Galaxy kind of proved that as well. But the Galaxy at least had some defensive sort of stability, especially heading into the playoff as well. You can't say the same thing about the Timbers. The Timbers have been very volatile when it comes to their defensive issue, and that's just simply not gonna always not gonna be enough to overcome, no matter how good your attack is. So as a result, I do think this is a fringe playoff team. And then again, I even go back to about talk about Phil Neville. I mean, do you really trust the fact that he's going to somehow get this team back to the to where they were a couple of years being an MLS Cup contender like what we saw with Giovanni Savarese? I don't think think so. So I think realistically, it's a fringe playoff team. If they overachieve, they could definitely be right there in the mid tier that is. But overall, again, the bottom line with this Timber side is I think as the season goes along, if this team does not do well, then they're definitely going to make some big decision, and also maybe even think about how they decide to create this roster. And again, it all goes back in terms of the Evander situation. It's so unfortunate too because he was just so good last season, but there's just something about this off season when it comes to star players not happy with their current teams and want to request a trade. That, yeah, that seems like has been a common theme. And unfortunately, the Timbers, like Cincinnati, are two teams that just unfortunately have their star just clearly not want to be there. Very unhappy with the situation. And again, we'll see. Eventually, it will be resolved. I wouldn't be surprised it might be resolved by the end of next week as well, and even before the regular season as well. But there you have it. That is pretty much it. Looking at the Portland Timbers in the season preview. As always, let me know in the comments below what do you think of this season preview. And if you're a Timbers fan, what do you think is the strength, the weakness, the free big question, and the expectation is heading into this season for this team. But until then, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, make sure you like, smash the subscribe button. And yeah, I, of course, will see you guys next time.